Thank you very much. And good evening, everybody. Glad to be here. What to do if the digital world is out of order? And to give you a bit of an overview, who am I and what I'm doing? I was already introduced. I'm running the quality on global scale for T-Systems. We operate in 20 countries. And my job is basically, if something doesn't work, to fix it. It's pretty much that, not more and not less. My private thing, and to introduce a bit of that, I have 2 sons and a daughter. The oldest son is now 18, and recently he moved in his own flat for the first time. And my son is not in IT at all. I mean, he's a typical user, but not really in IT at all. So when he moved then, his first thing was, yeah, Dad, what about internet? Is internet working there? I said, no, I ordered it already, but it's not there. It takes some days and some weeks. So that was a big obstacle for him. And after a few hours, he called me, oh, I have a solution. I said, okay, Paul, what is that for a solution? Because there is just no internet access. Yeah, I took a switch from my home, and I will just put it there, and then it's working. He says, Paul, it's not working because you need to connect the switch to the internet access at home. So it's not working. It's not going to work. A few minutes later, he came back. Yeah, I have another idea. You have that old VLAN router. Couldn't we take that one? Paul, also the VLAN router will not work because it needs to get connected. And then after 2 hours, he called me again. Now I got it. I have an Xbox, and the Xbox is with internet. I tell you that story. My son is a real digital native in terms of he was born when internet was already there in 1999, and he could not imagine a world without working internet. And for him, this 2 or 3 days without internet were a major issue. I think he had been easier if I told him, okay, you don't get any food for 3 days, than internet. It's amazing. It's really amazing. For him, it's everything. He's doing all his homework for school there. He's doing all his social contacts. I think if he didn't have his mobile phone, I think the 3 days had been really terrible for him. So that's about the importance. And I'm telling you that just to demonstrate, even on private matters, even for an 18-year-old, 2 or 3 days without internet are almost impossible. So my role is actually to work for large companies, and we are serving big companies such as Daimler, Shell, BP, and all these big ones in providing not only internet, but all kind of systems. If you talk about digital world and companies going to that digital world, that's usually then we are one of the big players in this market. And if even in private matters this is becoming that important, you cannot imagine how it's then for large companies. And if we have so-called major incidents, that means that a whole factory would not work anymore, or even all the factories would not work. We have one big system. I know from one big supplier of the automotive industry, and I know very well if this system doesn't work for whatever reason, after 8 hours in Europe, there will be no car manufacturing anymore. 8 hours, because everything is connected. We have that lean production, we have that just-in-time production. Everything needs to communicate with everything. Things are produced just on the fly, and it takes 8 hours for all European car manufacturers to stop their production lines if that system doesn't work with one of these suppliers. So it's really amazing how important things come. And that's the what I call the downside of all what we love today. If it doesn't work, this is getting horrible and even more horrible year over year. So if these things happen, and you might have seen several incidents where also you might even have been affected. We have listed here some of them. But just imagine there was recently an outage of WhatsApp. That was in all news, right? That was, I think, last week for 2 hours. This is becoming a major news because WhatsApp is not working, a free service, basically. It's getting really something people rely on, even on private matters. And because of that, the big question here is, who actually rules the internet? And I was thinking myself, okay, here is the cats. Yeah, if you look at the internet, you see frequently the cats are ruling the internet. But if you think more about it, who is actually ruling the internet? Probably the right answer is who owns the internet. And if you think about who's owning it, you will quickly end up, okay, there is a lot of cabling. So companies such as Deutsche Telekom, where I work for, at least own some parts of the internet, but not everything. And if you really look then more in detail, you end up quickly at Amazon Cloud Services, you end up at Apple, you end up at Cisco, you end up at very few companies who are really having a huge impact on the internet. And you might remember very recently when we had the outage with Amazon Cloud Services, there was almost nothing working anymore. There was a huge traffic jam everywhere. And as Amazon has become such a huge player in this market, an outage with Amazon makes very serious impact. And there were a lot of incidents like that, and sometimes even I'm affected by it. And I don't want to blame only Amazon, also we at T-Systems. You might remember, who of you has a T-Mobile phone? May I just ask, except the one who has LTE, Sven, you have one, okay, the others have not. Last summer, I was with my parents on a Saturday morning, and I was wondering why I couldn't do anything with my mobile phone because it was disconnected. Okay, my parents live on the countryside. I was, okay, maybe poor signal or so, but it was not. There was a major incident at Deutsche Telekom, and that major incident basically made T-Mobile Germany out of business for several hours. It took until lunchtime until things were up and running again. So it doesn't happen only with Amazon, it also happens with Deutsche Telekom, T-Systems, it happens actually to everyone. Yeah, and when thinking about that, you can even go one step further. These are things which happen because of software bugs or some other problems. We also have very few underwater sea connections. And I learned recently about 200 connections are critical undersea cables. And if you would just cut on purpose or by incident very few of them, the whole internet traffic would crash. And we had 1 year ago a very significant outage also we affected in T-Systems. We have a very huge subsidiary in South Africa. South Africa has basically 2 big lines connecting South Africa to the rest of the world. For some reason, both of them were affected at the same time. One, I think there was a cut by, I think also an enter. Another one was a software bug, which made that line out of business. And then South Africa was disconnected from the rest of the world. And that's it. So there was no access anymore. And that has serious impact. Happened also in other cases. You see here, even that banks would not be able to operate anymore. Whole traffic stops working. Everything stops working. The whole economy can go down if very few of these connections, for whatever reason, get out of operation. So these things are really serious, really serious. And if you think further, how much is now depending and will depend in future, that could really become critical in terms of violence, crime, that could really come to a major obstacle because people start panicking, would start, okay, what's going on? Remember one situation I personally perceived that was in 2007-8 when the bank crisis was. I was working for an American bank, and at a certain period of time, the online banking was not running again. And we had an issue there. Online banking was not working. We had deposits also coming from several people here in Germany. And after the Icelandic banks had stopped their online banking, people were going with the assumption we would also be out of business. And people were panicking and starting to withdraw money as much as they can. And as every bank, you don't have like endless liquidity. So if that happens for 2-3 days, you also out of business because you don't have any liquidity anymore. So even you're not bankrupt, you're out of liquidity, and that makes you out of business. These things can become very quickly very, very drastic. And we experience this every day, and you might experience that in future also. So then that leads me to the question, why actually outages happen? And I think that's an interesting, I think what I learned in the recent 5 years with these systems is reasons for outages, for whatever kind of outages. We in T-Systems have faced a lot. Usually my teams are then working on that. And you see here, 80% is my personal belief and also our statistics. If you think about it more in detail, it's kind of human error. Why is that? And you might remember the Amazon Web Cloud Service, a typo of a developer, an operator, made the whole thing crashing. And it's not for the first time, and again, it doesn't happen only with Amazon, it does happen with T-Systems as well. I mean, human errors happen, that's why we are human and not robots. So why is that human errors? I mean, if you think about systems and internet is by nature and by design actually with redundancy. And so are also the systems in professional IT for all kind of big enterprises. But even though you have everything twice or sometimes 4 or 6 times, even though we have a lot of outages. So why is that? Because IT, let's say hardware will not fail at the same time, all the cables can happen in these undersea cables, but usually have 2, 3, 4 machines, so it's not impacting so much if a hardware crashes. What is really the tricky thing is if people then do something either on purpose or not on purpose and do something wrong. And that usually triggers then a chain of events which makes the whole thing really crashing. Like that particular typo of that Amazon person who then started doing something, and that then has made the next thing failing, which again made the next fail, and then the chain started. And so that happens quite a lot of times. So typical things are you have not really tested your software in advance carefully enough. Typical things is if you change certain software or hardware, things didn't really work out, things were just installed the wrong way, configured the wrong way. These kind of things. It's always human error, which you sooner or later then realize. What is quite rarely, but everybody is talking about, is here. Hacker attacks, security breaches is actually a small minority for all the downtimes, unplanned downtimes we are facing. And that's, again, not only with T-Systems. That's actually more an exception than the rule. So yeah, what to do about human errors? And I can just give you, I don't want to present you now in detail what is T-Systems all is doing. And you might think, okay, he's almost 50 years old, so he's an old-fashioned guy. But the first answer to me is a certain level of discipline is important, right? I mean, if you work on these critical things, you need to have a lot of rigor. And I take again that Amazon person, if there was a second person sitting next to it, and controlling that and having a 4 eyes principle, this might not have happened, right? And that's, for instance, why we have that 4 eyes principle in T-Systems. We critical changes, we don't do just someone is typing something. We have always someone supervising him in a way of, okay, you type it, I check it, and we do it only if we are both on the same page. So that's one of the things. But again, that doesn't help at all, because you're depending on others. Yeah, you have certain software and hardware you purchase from somewhere else. You don't know what is in it. You don't know the new software release you're implementing. So it helps only to a certain extent. So that's why T-Systems came to the conclusion, whatever we do as a T-Systems, it's not going to help because we are depending on others. We are depending on undersea cables from others. We are depending on servers from others. We are depending on software from others. We're depending on so many other things. So it's not enough, and so it's not for anyone in this room. So what we thought then is we should have kind of what we call an association with others, often of the big ones in the industry, in particular the ones where a lot of things are coming from. And with them together, we should define something which will make the world more stable and better. And let me just show how that works.
In today's markets, change is happening so fast that it's hard for enterprises to keep track of recent technology developments. The ICT infrastructure of companies has components from multiple vendors. But if every provider has a different understanding of quality, this could result in misunderstandings, leading to critical defaults and safety issues. In order to guarantee zero outage, companies need to be able to control the quality of platforms, people, processes, and security throughout the whole supply chain. Therefore, companies within the IT sector have joined together to define an industry standard for IT quality. The aim is to work together as partners and develop an industry-wide known and respected best practice approach to ensure a stable, secure ICT. So how does it work? Much like the assembly of a high-performance Formula One car, all members of the Zero Outage Association agree to develop zero outage platforms, which have to consist of standardized, high-performance and high-availability platforms, with all components proven in a critical environment. Standardized processes enable greater efficiency and ensure a high-quality output with minimal implementation risks. When activities are clearly defined and understood, organizations can optimize systems and their performance. Only then will companies be ready to go out on the track. We agree on highly qualified, regularly trained and certified team members with the sense of urgency and quality in their DNA. To manage an organization efficiently, it is important that every team member knows their tasks and duties. Security is of the utmost importance to us, so team members are always on standby to prevent any incidents. Zero outage follows a rule set to safeguard complex manufacturing environments. Work has already begun, and we welcome every new hand in order to achieve greater quality amidst a rapidly changing technology environment.
Okay, that's what we started last year. It's a non-profit organization. You see here the companies who are a member already, and now more are coming on board. And we're actually quite happy that this has happened. Maybe content-wise, what are they doing? And a bit of that was already introduced in the video. We define certain standards. Standards in terms of security, minimum standards everybody has to comply to. Also platform, how hardware and software needs to be designed, built, tested upfront until it can get used. Processes, how companies work together in order to tackle an incident or to do a change. And what is most important, also standards for people, because people, as said, human error is the #1 pitfall here. And we define here how the training needs to be done, how certification needs to be done, how collaboration is being done, how leadership is being done. So these principles are also defined here, commonly, as said, for all the members here. And it's an open standard published on a website everybody can comply to, even though you are not members. So it's nothing which is in any kind of proprietary or non-disclosed. Yeah, that's the new thing. We started last year. Second release is live. There is now a website. You can even see if you want to. It's called zerooutage.com. Have a look there. And yeah, we are also looking for new members, but even individuals, if someone has good ideas, what to do differently to make things more stable, to avoid any kind of outages or problems, any input is more than appreciated. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I was asked, because we have a very tight end here, please come to the T-Systems stand in the entry hall.